These are the most disturbing crimes that happened in the Celeste community, and as the video progresses, the cases will just keep getting worse. Celeste is a two-dimensional platformer game created by Matt Makes Games, which rebranded as Extremely OK Games in September 2019. In case you don't know, platform games are video games where the main objective is to move from one environment to another while dodging obstacles and defeating enemies, like the original Super Mario and Sonic the Hedgehog games. Celeste followed a young woman named Madeline who was struggling with depression and anxiety. To overcome this, she challenged herself to climb the Celeste Mountain, where she encountered several obstacles, including Madeline, which is an alternative version of herself who personified her negative thoughts. The game was released on January 25th, 2018, and it was an instant hit with gamers. By the end of the year, Celeste sold 500,000 copies and won Best Independent Game at the 2018 Game Awards, which are basically the Oscars of the gaming world, along with other gaming awards. Several journalists also included Celeste in their list of best video games of all time, calling it an instant modern classic. Given its success and its gameplay mechanics that required precise movements, Celeste became one of the most popular games being streamed by speedrunners, which are gamers who aim to complete a game as fast as possible. So just over a year after the game was released, the Global Speedrun Association included Celeste in their game lineup for their speedrunning event called PACE, which happened from April 26th to April 28th, 2019. PACE is an annual live-streamed event where top speedrunners compete for the fastest time to finish the chosen game. The Celeste speedrunners that year were competing for $5,000 while thousands of people watched their live playthrough, so winning the event was a big deal. Before the event, one of the Celeste competitors, TGH, already broke the world record at the time by completing the game within 27 minutes and 50 seconds. Though he didn't break this record during the event, TGH still won the Celeste League that year at 28 minutes and 3 seconds, just 13 seconds over his previous record.
It's gonna be a 28:03.
However, on April 28th, while people were watching the PACE event, another gamer listed their time on speedrun.com, the website where players could submit their best times on a leaderboard, and this gamer's speedrun had apparently beaten TGH's world record. Phoenix 4K was a Twitch streamer within the Celeste community. Although he was an active member and often chatted with the top speedrunners, Phoenix kept a low profile. He didn't stream often and his best records were mostly done offline. He also rarely posted his best times on the leaderboards, and if he did, he would delete it shortly after since he wasn't satisfied. Overall, he wasn't a well-known speedrunner, so people didn't expect him to be in the same league as TGH and other top speedrunners. But on April 28th, 2019, he posted his best time on Celeste as 27 minutes and 43 seconds, a full 7 seconds faster than TGH's. Suddenly, Phoenix was the world record holder for the fastest Celeste speedrun. This was verified by the moderators who watched his gameplay video, which was required to confirm any speedrun time before they were posted in the leaderboards. But when other people began watching Phoenix's record-breaking playthrough video, things started to look suspicious. First, Phoenix didn't use the original audio for the game. Instead, the video's audio was an explicit song with rather inappropriate lyrics called Ram Ranch by Grant McDonald, which people found odd considering that it didn't match the game's theme at all. Second, there was a picture of a bird at the bottom right corner throughout the whole video, along with the caption, "Long live Archie." This was a tribute to another Celeste speedrunner, Kane, who announced that his pet bird, Archie, needed medical attention earlier that same month. Fellow speedrunners showing tributes for one another wasn't uncommon since by the next month, May 31st, 2019, the speedrunning community held its first Archie-thon, a gaming marathon meant to raise funds for Archie's medical treatments. However, in Phoenix's video, the placement of Archie's picture raised some serious questions. See, in Celeste, whenever a player enters a new stage for the first time within that session, a save icon appears on the bottom right corner of the screen. If they enter this stage again after loading the same save file, the icon won't appear anymore. Archie's image in Phoenix's video was the exact spot where the save icon should have appeared whenever he reached a new stage, so viewers couldn't confirm if this was the first time he entered them during that playthrough.
This was not hard proof like the berries, but it was incredibly compelling evidence that this run was beyond suspicious.
On top of that, Phoenix's video was missing an important element that most speedrunning records had: a timer. Speedrunning videos, especially those being submitted for the leaderboards, would often have a timer on top. While at the time, this wasn't required for videos submitted to the leaderboards, it was still common practice to have the timer to verify the player's speedrun. The audio, the image placement, and the missing timer all had people wondering if Phoenix faked his record-breaking speedrun video by editing together clips from different sessions to make them look like one speedrunning game. And one crucial detail solved this mystery. In Celeste, there's an optional collectible item called berries. These berries are scattered across the game, with many of them requiring the player to solve a puzzle to collect them. And speedrunners usually don't bother with collecting the berries since they would take time. But in Phoenix's case, he collected 2 berries in his fastest speedrun. This wasn't really a big deal until he paused the game.
The berry that Phoenix did collect in the summit should be marked with a red circle.
Celeste speedrunners paused the game to stop the cutscenes from playing. Cutscenes, if you don't know, are short video clips that are played between the game to complete the story. Of course, these clips would also take time for the speedrunners, so pausing the game to skip them was important. But apart from skipping the cutscenes, pausing the game also showed an indicator at the bottom of the screen to show the player how much of the berries they'd already collected. If they collected the berry at a certain stage, the line at the bottom of the paused screen would turn into a red dot. However, this red dot would turn blue if the player exited the game, then loaded up their save file to continue. And in Phoenix's video, viewers saw that even though he had collected a berry on one stage, its indicator on the pause menu didn't turn into a red dot. Then, when he paused the game near the end of his video, there was a line that turned into a blue dot instead, even though he didn't collect the berry on the stage that it was assigned to. The fact that the dot turned blue also meant that he had already exited the game, then continued it using the save file. This was hard proof that Phoenix spliced multiple gameplays together to make it look like he had beat the game in record time. And so, on April 29th, 2019, just a day after he appeared on the leaderboard, a moderator from speedrun.com announced that Phoenix's record-holding speedrun was spliced and will be removed. Phoenix also admitted to editing his speedrun video, so he received a 6-month ban from the leaderboards. Moderators also announced that after his 6-month ban, Phoenix's entries would be strictly investigated and should have the original game audio and timer. They also made timers mandatory for all submissions, while image overlays were banned from covering parts of the screen to avoid hiding crucial details like the save icon. After Phoenix's 6-month ban was lifted around late October 2019, he streamed a legitimate Celeste speedrun at 27 minutes and 49 seconds, beating TGH's previous record for real this time. However, he hasn't submitted this or any speedruns he'd done to the leaderboards again. Phoenix lost his spot in the leaderboards because of his cheating. Meanwhile, this next Celeste creator tried to be honest about something in a game, only to receive backlash and harassment that spread throughout the community.
There are just too many trans people in video games these days. Everywhere I turn, a character comes out as trans and I can't take it anymore. Is what I would say if I was a loser.
One thing that made Celeste stand out for its fans was Madeline's story and personal journey. Her effort to climb the mountain to battle her negative thoughts was relatable to many gamers who are struggling with their own issues. This was effective because Matt Thorson, the writer and developer of Celeste, used their own experience with anxiety and overcoming it as inspiration for Madeline's story. But while the team of Matt Makes Games continued to develop new characters for Celeste throughout 2018 and 2019, Matt's own story was also developing, and they would soon share this story on July 14th, 2019 on International Non-Binary Day. In a tweet, Matt posted, "I'm going to use this opportunity to say, hi, I'm non-binary. I struggle with shame sometimes, but when I'm comfortable being myself, it's wonderful." From then on, Matt changed their name to Maddie Thorson. Fans quickly showed their support by commenting on Maddie's tweet, but this wouldn't be the only revelation Maddie had that year. On September 9th, 2019, just 2 months after Maddie came out, the team released Celeste's final chapter known as Farewell. The chapter was the game's longest and most difficult one, and once players reached the top of Celeste and finished Madeline's story, they were met with the epilogue cutscene that ended the whole game. The epilogue showed Madeline back at home after climbing the Celeste mountain. She then received a video call from Theo, one of the friends she made during the journey, and this scene alone changed everything players knew about the game. The scene showed Madeline using her computer in her bedroom, and behind her keyboard, fans noticed 2 specific flags, the LGBTQ flag and the transgender flag. This had fans wondering if Madeline was a trans woman after all. Then, some curious fans checked the scenes further and noticed one more clue. During the scene when Madeline woke up in her bedside table could be seen, and it was filled with photographs. Among these photographs was of a woman holding a young child. This child had the same red hair as Madeline but was noticeably shorter, looking more like a boy than a little girl. The flags and the idea that the child in the photograph was Madeline led fans to believe that she was assigned male at birth but had transitioned to being female, much like her creator, Maddie. But unlike Maddie's coming out post just months before, Madeline's identity was welcomed by all her fans. Some gamers began criticizing the game for being woke. Online debates within Reddit and the Steam community page began, with some arguing that this reveal was only made because Maddie decided to come out. One user said, "Madeline isn't trans. It's like how J.K. Rowling randomly said Hermione is black, just changing the character after it's already completed because of their personal issues." Meanwhile, on the community-driven Celeste wiki website, disappointed fans began adding slurs and inappropriate content to the pages. One even changed Madeline's page, calling her a young Canadian man, while changing all her pronouns to he and his. The editor also ridiculed Madeline's journey, calling it pointless and harmful. And surprisingly, those who didn't accept Madeline's identity weren't the ones who expressed their anger. LGBTQ gamers questioned why Madeline's identity was revealed quietly and at the very end of the game. Laura Dale, a transgender journalist, wrote an article about this on October 21st, 2019, just a month after Farewell was launched. In this article, she said, "The way Madeline's trans reveal was handled was going to cause debate and discussion. Put simply, there's a lot of people out there who don't like transgender people existing, and they will find any excuse to deny the existence of a trans character. She never says she's trans with words, and the character has remained radio silent on her trans status when asked about it, so many refuse to accept it as canon. You don't just put a trans flag next to a character's computer without that being a consensus choice. But anytime I or other trans people try to excitedly talk about what that fact means for us, we get swarmed with people telling us we're wrong and to stop trying to force characters into being trans." Madeline's revelation ended up dividing the community, with many refusing to accept her identity while queer gamers who defended her became targets for harassment. And with gamers urging the developers to make an announcement to clarify Madeline's identity, Maddie finally made a blog post on the online publishing website called Medium on November 6, 2020, over a year after the Farewell update. In their blog post, they explained, "Is Madeline canonically trans? Well, yeah, of course she is. When I wrote Celeste, I sincerely still believed that I was cisgender, but I was nevertheless waist deep in gender feelings, among other anxieties. When Madeline looked in the mirror and sees her other self, when the two reconcile and merge to become stronger and more complete, that was all unknowingly written from a trans perspective. So maybe if you're a cis person and you personally relate to Madeline, you shouldn't feel like we're pulling one over on you. Instead, you could take this as evidence that trans and cis feelings aren't so different." Maddie went on to explain that they didn't initially write Madeline as trans, but as they were making the Farewell update, the thought formed in their minds, so they made it official. As for not addressing the issue that divided their fans for over a year, Maddie said, "I'm sorry for that. It's wrapped up in my personal gender identity and it's messy. I simply didn't know the words until now." At this point, the debate on Madeline's identity began to quiet down. Instead, it was replaced by ongoing jokes within the community that playing Celeste would turn them into a queer person. While many still find the jokes offensive, some have accepted that these were nothing compared to the attacks they dealt with before. For now, despite the backlash it initially received, Celeste has gotten recognition for representing the LGBT community while still being relatable to everyone who has ever struggled with their mental health. While the development team was criticized for how they handled Madeline's identity, the next team behind Celeste's beloved music faced backlash for betraying their artists.
This company, which has put a gigantic target on itself time and time again, which pissed off the entire internet with allegations of not paying artists for multiple soundtracks, including Celeste's B-side album.
Besides being an award-winning game, Celeste is also known for its beloved musical score. Composed by Lena Raine, the game's soundtrack reflected Madeline's emotional journey to help players connect with the main character. From the day of the game's release, fans of the soundtrack were able to buy it from Lena's Bandcamp page. Bandcamp, if you didn't know, is a music streaming platform for independent artists to sell their works directly to their fans. But on January 25th, 2019, during the game's first anniversary, Celeste officially launched a piano collection album album through a record label called Materia Collective. 6 months later, on July 26th, Materia Collective bought the rights to all of Celeste's soundtrack and remixes, including Lena's original scores. Working with a known record label helped the albums reach more people through the official physical copies and streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music. And similar to any record deals, Materia Collective agreed to pay the composers and artists who worked on the albums a royalty fee, which is a portion of the album's overall sales. However, over a year after the record deal was finalized, things started to fall apart. It all began with Matthew Hopkins, who's better known online as Too Mellow. Matthew composed the lo-fi hip-hop remix of the Celeste song Mirror Temple, which Materia Collective released under the Celeste B-side album in July 2019. But over 17 months later, on January 14th, 2021, Matthew revealed on his Twitter account that, "I've not received any payment from Materia Collective for the sales and streams of the Celeste B-side track since July 26th, 2019, when they began handling the release's payments. At least 3 other B-side remix artists I've talked to have also not been paid by Materia since July. I inquired about this in October 2020, was told there were outstanding royalties for me, but had no updates since November. It's been 17 months since the last payment in July 2019. After sending 3 more messages without a reply, I'm posting this in hopes to resolve things." Matthew's post prompted the internet to pressure Materia Collective to pay what they owed to the Celeste composers, and within hours, Materia Collective officially made a statement saying, "We want to acknowledge the concerns about missing royalties related to Celeste B-sides. This was an error, not intentional withholding, but it should not have happened. We apologize and are in the process of resolving this. We've been in a meeting all afternoon to make a plan. We didn't realize just how widespread this was. That's on us." However, the story wasn't over yet. The following day, January 15th, composers of other gaming soundtracks spoke up about not receiving their payments from Materia Collective as well. Gaming news outlets also covered the story in the next few days, with online magazine PC Gamer getting an interview with Matthew himself. In this interview, he shared, "I'm aware that 5 out of 7 of the artists involved in the B-side albums are in the exact same situation as me. We all received tax forms and personal info sheets to fill out to get registered with the company, and communication stopped there. I saw 8 other accounts yesterday, and more people who claimed to have worked for Materia and seen the bad state their payment system was in while they were there, or heard many artists weren't getting paid. So at least over a dozen artists have been affected." With more artists going public over their unpaid royalties, Materia Collective CEO Sebastian Wolf offered an apology and promised to make all the payments by mid-February. At the same time, Matthew promised to delete his tweets as soon as all of the artists were paid, and by March of that year, 2 weeks after Sebastian's promised deadline, Matthew's tweets were still up, hinting that they hadn't made all the payments yet. Then, on March 11th, 2021, just under 2 months after the reports came out, Materia Collective announced that they hired a new chief operations officer, Daniel Jimenez Wall, with the company claiming that this was a step to improve Materia's infrastructure and long-term strategy. Then, just 2 weeks later, on March 26th, Daniel announced on Materia Collective's Twitter account that, "I have accepted the resignation of Sebastian Wolf as CEO. As the newly appointed COO, I'll now also act as the interim CEO and look forward to continuing to make improvements to Materia, building a successful future for our artists." Sebastian resigning as the company's CEO came just 10 weeks after Matthew's post. Though no official statement suggested that these 2 events were connected, another artist would reveal what Materia Collective had really been hiding. On October 26, 2021, just 7 months after Sebastian's resignation, gaming composer and former Materia Collective community manager Laura Platt made a series of tweets to reveal what she experienced during her time at the record label. She began with a warning saying, "PSA to all my friends and colleagues, please don't work with the label Materia Collective. Sebastian Wolf is still running things over there, despite what he might want you to think." Then she went on to talk about the unpaid royalties that came out that January. She revealed that Sebastian himself decided not to pay most of the artists and only pay those who were big players like Lena and Undertale creator Toby Fox. Laura claimed that the staff weren't aware of this until Matthew made his post, leading to the emergency meeting they announced later that day. However, during this meeting, Sebastian went offline. When he came back, he told us of how he had blocked the offending accounts with the official Twitter and explained that there was no error. It was for literally no reason other than his own lack of care for Materia's artists. There was lots of, "Don't worry, they can't afford to sue us, and they haven't made enough for it to be worth it to sue us. And I've made sure that the big players have been paid. And to make matters worse, Laura and other Materia Collective staff were composers themselves who weren't paid their royalties. Laura herself was owed over $1,000 at the time, and she also knew other co-workers who had larger unpaid royalties. Laura's revelation sparked another public outrage over Materia Collective. While a former PR manager who went by Pumpkin Spice VJ online shared that he experienced the same thing with the company. To him, it had gotten so bad that it made him quit music entirely. Hours later, the company responded to their stories, saying, "We are incredibly saddened today to read the experiences shared by two of Materia's past team members. Our team and artists are what make Materia, and it's our responsibility to ensure that they are nurtured and respected. In recent months, we have taken significant steps to place staff well-being at the forefront of the company, while seeking deeper organizational changes to not only restructure, but to build a new framework of how we can for our team members and artists." Their statement was met with backlash. However, as people weren't convinced they had made any changes since Matthew's post in January, one Twitter comment pointed out, "It's been months since you got caught not paying artists, and there are many artists that still have not been paid." As of mid-2026, the composers hadn't publicly confirmed if they were paid their royalties or not. Meanwhile, Matthew's Twitter account had been deleted along with his posts that started this story, making it unclear if he removed the posts to announce that the royalties had been paid or not. No lawsuit against Materia Collective had been announced, while their website now presents Sebastian as their executive producer, confirming Laura's claims that he still works within the company. While Materia Collective's mismanagement led to artists losing both their money and inspiration for their craft, the next story had far greater consequences, as someone lost something that can never be returned.
Sorry if this is rambling and messy. I'm scared shitless to out an industry legend like this, and I can't live with this secret anymore.
Before their hit platformer Celeste, Maddie and their friends worked on a game called Towerfall beginning in mid-2012. But since all of them were just starting their careers in the gaming industry at the time, Maddie shared a rented house in Vancouver, Canada with their friends to save money while working on Towerfall. This group included developers Chevy Ray Johnston and Noel Berry, and music composer Alec Holowka. The group of independent creators called themselves Indie House, and by June 25th, 2013, over 6 years before Celeste came out, they released Towerfall, a multiplayer action game that was available on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Steam, and eventually in Nintendo Switch. Towerfall was praised for the simple mechanics that were easy to learn by both beginners and skilled gamers, while still allowing customization and creative battle strategies to make each round different from the last. Though it didn't gain as much recognition as Celeste did, Towerfall was still a hit with gamers. It earned $500,000 within its first year and was nominated for the 2014 Independent Games Festival Excellence in Design Award, giving the Indie House team better financial stability and recognition within the gaming community. And so, after years of continuing Towerfall's development while brainstorming ideas for new projects, Indie House finally disbanded in January 2017. Its members moved out of the house they shared for nearly 5 years while they pursued separate projects. Shortly after, Maddie and Noel began creating Celeste. Meanwhile, Chevy continued working on his own game called Iconfell, while Alec joined the studio Infinite Fall to work as the composer, coder, and designer for their new game Night in the Woods. But while they were on their separate paths, one member's past actions would soon haunt them and the whole game industry. Everything started on August 26, 2019, when game designer Natalie Lawhead posted about how Jeremy Soule, who composed soundtracks for popular games like Elder Scrolls, had intimately attacked her back in 2008. Around this time, Natalie was in her mid to late 20s and was just starting out in the industry. Meanwhile, Jeremy was in his 30s and was friends with her boss, making her afraid of speaking out against him. While Natalie's story had no connection to Indie House, it did inspire someone else to speak out that following day. On August 27, 2019, fellow game developer Zoe Quinn posted this. I've been silent about this for almost my entire career and I can't do it anymore. Sorry if this is rambling and messy. I'm scared to out an industry legend like this, but I can't live with the secret anymore. Zoe, who is non-binary, then posted their experience in the screenshots under their tweet, noting that reading Natalie's story reminded them of their own experiences. Within months after getting into the gaming industry, Zoe had been intimately attacked by someone in the community. However, this wasn't the focus of their story, as Zoe claimed to have made amends with this man whom she refused to name. But this event wasn't the focus of their story. After what happened, Zoe wanted to leave Toronto, Canada to move on, and this was when they connected with Alec Holowka, the composer of Towerfall and previous roommate of Maddie and Noelle. According to the tweet, around April 2012, before Alec had moved in with Maddie in Vancouver, he invited Zoe to stay with him in Winnipeg. They said that Alec was the one person who I felt like, in my newly chosen field, had my back. He talked about how great and cheap Winnipeg was, and we flirted and talked on Skype for hours. Zoe then agreed to live with Alec and 3 of their mutual friends in Winnipeg to see if things between them could get serious. So, Zoe hopped on a plane and agreed to stay at Alec's house for 2 weeks. However, when they got there, the plans changed. He slowly isolated me from everyone else in my life while absolutely degrading me whenever we were alone. He convinced me to talk the 3 friends out of getting a shared place with me there. He wouldn't let me leave the apartment without him and refused to give me the code to get in. Beyond that, Zoe claimed that Alec had forced intimacy with them, then blamed Zoe for what happened. He told me he loved me in a way no one else could, because he could see that I was terrible and he loved me anyway. And I bought it because that's how you feel when you're recovering from being attacked. He'd act normal when other people were around and lay into me as soon as we were alone, then apologize and say how much he needed and loved me. After 2 weeks had passed, Alec had allegedly refused to let them leave, so Zoe had to call their roommate back in Toronto to help them escape. But even after they were free, Zoe claimed that Alec lashed out at them and tried to ruin their career in the gaming industry by spreading gossip about them and getting Zoe blacklisted at important events. Hundreds of people who saw Zoe's posts went on to show their support in the comment section. However, they also learned that their experience with Alec wasn't a one-time thing. One comment said, "This wasn't the first time I've heard that name attached to such a story." And within hours, Zoe received many personal messages that shared other women's experiences with Alec. Zoe responded to them with, "I had no idea it was so bad. I'm sorry I waited this long to come forward." Maddie themselves also reacted to the surge of allegations against Alec, saying, "I lived and worked with Alec Holowka for years. I believe and support Zoe. Sadly, based on my experiences with Alec and my experiences of those close to me, I was shocked by her account but not surprised." However, as of mid-2026, Sherry and Noelle hadn't made a public statement about the allegations against their friend and former co-worker, and by the following day after Zoe's post, Infinite Fall, the studio where Alec was working at, addressed the issue, saying, "This week, allegations of past abuse have come to light regarding Alec Holowka. We take such allegations seriously as a team. As a result, and after some agonizing consideration, we are cutting ties with Alec." However, not everyone was siding with Zoe. This was because of Zoe's history with Gamergate, a misogynistic campaign within the gaming industry back in 2014 and 2015. Zoe's ex-boyfriend, Iron Journey, started his campaign after he posted a blog on August 6, 2014, accusing Zoe of providing intimate favors to get ahead within the gaming industry. This included gaming journalist and Zoe's boyfriend at the time, Nathan Grayson, who allegedly became intimate with Zoe in exchange for publishing a positive article for their game, Depression Quest. This accusation has been debunked since the only time Nathan mentioned Depression Quest in an article was including it on a list of 50 games that came out on Steam on January 8, 2014. Meanwhile, his relationship with Zoe began 4 months later in April. Despite this, however, the harassment against women in the gaming industry began after Iron's post went public, attaching Zoe's name to Gamergate permanently. And 5 years later, after the story with Alec came out, people continued to use Iron's story against them, with one of these people calling Zoe a known con artist and liar that has sold her body for jobs. While the gaming industry was split between people who believed Zoe's story and those who didn't, Alec himself was silent about the controversy. Instead, it would be his sister, Eileen, who posted a shocking update 4 days later on August 31st, 2019, saying, "Alec Holowka, my brother and best friend, passed away this morning." Eileen also shared that her brother was a victim, and he also spent a lifetime battling mood and personality disorders. "I will not pretend that he was not also responsible for causing harm, but deep down, he was a person who wanted only to offer people care and kindness." Eileen revealed that Alec had been in therapy for years to become a new person, but after Zoe's story was posted online, he felt he had lost too much. Alec was only 35 when he passed away, but even after his death, people continued to dig deeper into what happened between him and Zoe. After Eileen's post, those who were against Zoe began picking apart their story, insisting they had lied and caused Alec's untimely death. An article in the Post-Millennial, a right-leaning news platform, released an article on September 8, 2019, 9 days after Alec's death. In the article, they pointed out how Zoe had tweeted several of their activities during their time in Winnipeg around April 2nd to April 15th, 2012, the time they had allegedly moved in and been isolated by Alec. They also showed how Zoe and Alec had planned to meet up with 38 other developers in the area on April 12th, which contradicted Zoe's claim that Alec was isolating her at the time. Both Alec and Zoe also appeared on a podcast called Indie Function on April 14th, where they discussed the projects they were working on at the time, along with personal stories. During the podcast episode, Zoe was asked what their life as a developer was like, and they responded with,
"Oh, you are so good at questions."
What is your favorite part of making games?
It's probably a hard question to answer, actually.
My favorite part is all of it.
Yeah.
Or at least in the sense that I get to, like, my life right now is I wake up in the morning, I bullet on a game that I care about very passionately, and then I pass out from exhaustion. That's my favorite part of games, is just being able to make something that intensely and have it be, like, something that I, like, just being able to do it full time, I guess, is my favorite part.
Yeah, and my favorite part about it is how many different parts there are.
Yeah.
So there's like all these different elements that come together. You know, you get to do music, you get to do art, you get to do code, you get to do design, you get to hang out with really awesome people.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of why I love it so much. It's really like all of it works. And if there was one part that really, really sucked, I might not love it as much, but I don't think there are any parts that really suck.
But none of this was concrete evidence of what truly happened between Zoe and Alec during those weeks in Winnipeg, so people remained divided about their situation to this day. And as articles like these started spreading online, Zoe remained silent on their social media until September 12th, nearly 2 weeks after Alec's death. In their post, they said, "This is the one and only thing I have to say publicly about the last few weeks. Love and healing to those affected. Piss and pus for the opportunistic creeps." They then included a link to a crisis helpline. However, below all that was also a screenshot showing more of Zoe's message. "No one coming forward about abuse they've faced and telling their story is responsible for their abuser's death, just as no one who chooses not to come forward is responsible for the abuser's further victims. I have nothing but love and sympathies for anyone else hurt in the wake of all this.